All right, we're back to it then. Doesn't feel like the break's been very long at all, does it? It goes by quick. We just had the international break, obviously. For me, the worst international break that you can get. Absolutely despise it. Just as you're getting into the rhythm and getting into the flow, here we go. I know it was World Cup qualifiers, but I'll be quite honest with you. Didn't tune in to anything. I went out for dinner with my girlfriend Holly on the Friday that Scotland played Denmark, and that just kind of so happened to be home where we were. So I was turning my head and catching little bits here and there. I didn't watch the game against Belarus. I know it's a win and everything last night for Scotland. Well done, 4 points. Of course, I want us to qualify and everything like that, but just in general, I just struggle with the international break. I really, really do. I'm into the tournaments, and that's just how I am. I just really do struggle with it. So well done, Scotland. 4 points from it. Obviously, we're back at it again in a few weeks' time, and I think it's another 3 games we got, and then we're back at the break. So we'll have to reconvene again after that. But here we are. Wanted just to do a little catch-up video and kind of almost do like a little bit of a revised predictions based on what I did before the transfer window shut and just before the season started, because as we've seen and as we know, it's a busy deadline day and it can change the outlook on the clubs and what's really going to happen. So I think it's good to do those predictions at the beginning. What's your kind of gut feeling, what you're thinking based on last season, who people have got on at the time, and then when that window slams shut, how's it looking, and we kind of go through it and revise it. So if we just quickly have a look at the Premier League table after the 3 games, we see Liverpool are top of the table on 9 points. You've got Chelsea second on 7, Arsenal in third, Tottenham in fourth, Everton fifth, Sunderland high up there in sixth, Bournemouth 7th, Palace 8th, United 9th, Forest 10th, go on and so forth. I'll put the league table up on here so you guys can see it. I'm not going to go through every single team there, but that's where we're sitting after 3 games. And I always did say that those first 3 games, no one's going to be perfect. You're just going to have to get through it and just see where it goes and come out of it as best as you can. And I think that's the same case for this one. People coming back from the international games, has anyone picked up some injuries? Is anyone looking a bit fitter or unfitter? And after that kind of next international break is when the real football starts for me. So let's dive into it. I'll have my predictions pop up here as I'm talking on the screen, just for what I had before the season started. But I did tip City to win the league. I'm not going to go through every single place here, but I did tip City to win the league. I had Liverpool second, Arsenal third, Chelsea in fourth, Man United in fifth to wrap up the Champions League spots. And then Spurs 6th, Villa 7th, Newcastle 8th, Brighton 9th, and Palace 10th, right? So I'll just kind of stop it on the top half of the table, but it'll be up here on the screen for you guys that are watching through. And yeah, I do have a couple of changes in there. I'm not going to lie, I do have a couple of changes. So let's start with the top 3. The 3 that have been the 3 for the last couple of seasons, and still feel as if they will be the 3 and that no one's really going to break them. I don't see it. I still think there'll be a little bit of a gap. It might be a bit closer than it has been in recent seasons, but I don't see it being broke. I want to start with Liverpool because they're the champions. They're the team to go and catch, and they're the team that were the most active in the transfer market. And then I want to go ahead and look at Arsenal and City and just compare them and kind of give my thoughts as to why I've changed what I've changed, because I have flipped that. I do think Liverpool are going to win the league. I have put Liverpool first after the business that they've ended up getting done. I have gone for Arsenal second and City third. So it has flipped a little bit there from what I had in first time. So just looking at Liverpool, we know they finally got the Isak deal over the line, which is a big reason for my change in what I've put there. We already know they signed Florian Wirtz. They got Ekitike in, Kirkez, Frimpong. They then signed the young centre-half Leone in from Parma, only 18 years old. And we kind of know the rest there. If we just look at the outs, which I think is obviously important, and what I'm going to go through with a few of these teams here, because who you get out and who you then replace is important. We lose Luis Diaz, who I wasn't too happy about. I understand why Liverpool have done that from a business point of view, but I would like to have keep him. 70 million euros for him at 28, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good bit of business. Nunez goes off to Saudi. Quanta went to Leverkusen, and then you've got the likes of Ben Doak, obviously got sold. Kelleher got sold, and Trent went to Real Madrid. Harvey Elliott gets his loan moved to Villa with a view to buy. Simicast goes off to Roma on loan as well there. And we know, unfortunately, what happens to Diogo Jota, which I don't think I've really touched on in too many videos because I didn't feel like it was really right to do so, and I still kind of don't. But from someone that's gone through the loss of someone close to me and my dad in April, we kind of just look at football, and football is what it is, and we just kind of take it on a basis of these guys are football players and get out there and play and you have a lot of money, but that will be deeply affecting Liverpool. So it's really interesting to see how the squad have kind of rallied around each other and get going. That has an impact that will play on them throughout the course of the season. It's not like that just goes away anytime soon, I'll tell you that for free. So it's going to be very interesting and see how they deal with it. And that could be one thing that does derail Liverpool a little bit that you can take out of football context. But that's what we're looking at there for Liverpool. I did see a very interesting depth chart for them online on Twitter, which I tried to get up for all these teams here, but I couldn't find it on Opta. So if anyone sees this and you can let me know how I can actually find that. That would be brilliant. I think it maybe is just when they do articles or something like that. But if we go through the Liverpool squad and the depth chart, again, if you're watching, it will be popping up on the screen, but you've got Alisson as the main goalkeeper and you've got Marmustashvili as your backup. I think, Kelleher was a great goalkeeper. Marmustashvili is probably the future once Alisson goes. I'd love to keep Alisson for as long as we possibly can, and one of the greatest keepers I've ever seen in my time. But you have to say that's probably a little bit of a stronger two in there. If you move over to the right back situation, you've got Frimpong, you've got Bradley, and it does say Calvin Ramsey there. I don't think he'll get too much of a look in. You might want to chalk Dominic Szoboszlai in there based on the two performances he had. But obviously Trent goes and it's a completely different change, and it'll take a little bit of time to bed that in there. And you can see he went with Szoboszlai at right back over Bradley in a couple of games. He's not quite fit yet while Frimpong's been out. So an area to improve on, but you'd say still very strong for Liverpool. We know the centre halves, it's Kanate and Leone. They didn't get Guéhi over the line, which I think they would have liked to have Guéhi in there, obviously. It'll be interesting to see if they go back in for him. Guéhi acts like the nice guy, doesn't do what Isak does, and doesn't get his move. So that's another interesting part on kind of transfers and how they work. You've got Van Dijk there. You've got Joe Gomez, who has come in when he's been fit and has looked great. Reece Williams, won't get much of a look in. Left back, you've got Kerkez and Robertson. It's an upgrade on Robertson and Tsimikas for me. Kerkez is the first choice and Robertson is that backup, but Robertson absolutely can get himself back into the first team. I have no doubts that if Kerkez isn't working, and he looked like he improved a lot against Arsenal, Rob will get that spot back. Midfield, you've got Gravenberch, you've got McAllister, you've got Jones, you've got Endo, you've got Steven Bajcetic, who they kept around, and you've got Trey Naoni, who's obviously a young lad. Higher up, you've got Wirtz and Szoboszlai, are probably a bit more of the attacking midfielders. Then you got Salah and Chiesa off the right, and which is the same as what it was last season. You've then got Gakpo and Rio instead of Gakpo and Diaz. I think they obviously back Rio to be able to have an impact even at his age, and he gets that goal against Newcastle. And then your two strikers are Isak and Ekitike instead of Jota and Nunez. So I think if you actually look at that Liverpool team, maybe bar, you don't know how the right back situation is going to go, and Trent had a lot of strengths, but he also did have weaknesses. You could argue that Liverpool team's maybe potentially stronger overall in there, and that's what Arsenal and Man City are going to have to compete with here. I think, there was a lot of talk about Liverpool looking open in this first few games, and then against Arsenal, it wasn't that case. It was quite a boring game, but, they seemed to be able to step in there and be a bit more compact when needed. So that's what Arsenal and City are up against. And I just think with the signing of Isak and what I've seen so far in the squad, and you've got Salah, Van Dijk and Alisson still there, and Robertson still there, kind of just showing these guys what to do. Kanate obviously as well. It just feels like a really, really good mix. And I was a bit unsure with Liverpool before that, because at the time recording the video, it was like Diaz had gone and there was talks of Nunez going, and you didn't know if Isak was going to get over the line, and we didn't know how Ekitike was going to be, even though he's been absolutely brilliant. But it just feels as if that's a very, very solid kind of rebuild, future planning from Liverpool there, as well as buying for the now. So let's go on into Arsenal. They spent a good bit of money as well. They spent about 293 million euros. If you want to do the kind of whole incomes and outgoings, they actually spent the most. I mean, Liverpool spent 482 million, but got 219 million euros back with a total spend of 263 million. Whereas I say Arsenal actually spent 283 million, so they got 10 mil back and spent 293. So if you're into that type of stuff, I just really care about what you do on the pitch, to be honest, and as long as you're not breaking the rules, so take that as you want. But Arsenal brought Zubimendi in, they then got Eze in, we know they brought Gyökeres, they bought Madueke, they bought Mascherano, who I thought looked really good when he came on for Saliba against Liverpool. They bring in Norgard as a bit of experience there, they've got Kepa as a backup keeper. We know the young lad Max Dowman at 15 years old is kind of like a new signing, and on the way out, they got like Nuno Tavares out, Marquinhos, Kiwior, Partey obviously left, Tierney's left, Jorginho's left, Fabio Vieira, Zinchenko's gone to Forest on loan as well, Reece Nelson's Alisson's gone to Brentford on loan. So a few changes there. Sterling was obviously on loan and has gone back. So that's Arsenal's kind of bit of business. Again, I like it. It feels very samey for Arsenal. It feels as if they were only missing a 9, and that's how they've looked at it, and that they're not going to change too much. And it's one of those, when you're continuously coming second, you've done very well in the Champions League and you've come too close, you probably do only feel like it needs a tweak, and it probably only does. I just don't know, from what I've seen from them, against United, they get the result away from home, even though probably being the poorer side, if you want to say that, but that's good mentality. That's what top teams do. They then play against Leeds and they hammer Leeds, but it looked a little bit touchy for a little bit of time period, just in open play again, relying on the set pieces. And then again, they come to Anfield, and it is earlier on in the season, but just didn't quite release the handbrake enough for me to just go and do that. And again, relied a lot on the set pieces. So that's what they're going to do. That's how they're going to look at it. I don't have a squad depth chart for Arsenal, but if we just go through it on transfer market, we know they've got Raya, who's probably up there with Alisson as the 2 best keepers in the league. And then they've got Kepa as a backup, who a bit dodgy for me, but we'll see where that goes. Saliba and Gabriel at the back, we know that. I'm not going to be able to pronounce this lad's name they brought from Bayern Leverkusen. I apologise. Hinasape, if I even say that correctly, apologies. Definitely not going to be known as the man that can pronounce a lot of names correctly here until I start hearing them and seeing them. Mosquera, who I said looks decent. You've got Miles Skelly at left back. Calafiori there. You then got Timber and Ben White to wrap up the defence. You got Zubamendi, Norgard, Declan Rice, Moreno, Odegaard, Eze, Wanyeri, Max Dowman, kind of attacking midfielders. As Arsenal have added a lot of depth. It does look a lot better. And then up top, you've got Martinelli, you've got Trossard, you've got Saka, you've got Madueke, you've got Gyökeres, you've got Havertz, and you've got Jesus, even though both of them look like they're out for a little bit of a time period. So one thing Arsenal have really improved on for me, and why I almost just had them be first, because there's not been a lot of change, and Salah talked about that in his interview with Sky before the game. Arsenal the favourites because there's not been a lot of change, and it was really interesting to hear that, if you think about the 2 times Liverpool have won the league when Salah's there's really been no signings have come in, and it's been a continuity of what you had the season before. So it's interesting his mental take on that, as well as probably playing a little bit of games, but not a lot of change for Arsenal. It's just the pressure that's on them for me. And already the narrative of they're not looking like they're changing much. They won't give a shit about that as long as they're winning games, don't get me wrong. And I think they will absolutely be in the mix. And I think they'll be very difficult to play against in Europe. And, as the season goes on, all those things play a part. How many points behind you are in the league? Where are we in Europe? And that changes where managers look to go and how they look to do things. But we can't predict that now. So for now, I'm going second just because of what I've said. It still feels like the handbrake's on. And I don't know if it'll be enough again to just kind of stick with that. And I've not seen enough of Gyökeres yet to say he's going to absolutely bang them in. So I'm going with Arsenal second. Let me know your guys' thoughts on that based on the squad. I did have City to win the league, just because it's Pep and it's City, and we know what they've won 6 of the last 7. So you just always are like, surely they're going to be in the mix. But they've changed the coaching staff, they've changed a good few players. I think there's a lot of pros to that. I did say that Linders will bring energy and stuff back like that, but 3 games in, I don't know. My gut feeling is saying that they're maybe still a bit lost. I don't know if, they had Trafford and then they've gone and got Donnarumma, which, Donnarumma's probably globally an upgrade on that, and he had some great games in the Champions League last season, and he's a good keeper, but I think Luis Enrique's wanted to get rid of him for a reason, but he likes to play too, and he obviously doesn't deem him to quite be there. And a little bit different styles, both kind of Barca boys, but definitely different styles from Pep and Enrique. But that will be an interesting one. I don't know if that's still going to be enough to win them a league. I don't think Donnarumma's better than Raya and Alisson there. So that's obviously 2 signings they made. We know they bring in Reinders. We know they bring in Nori. We know they bring in Sherke. And I'm thinking that's about it. For ins, obviously not including the January one to your likes of Marmoush and that. They let Grealish go on loan to Everton. He started off brilliantly. Kyle Walker's at Burnley. We know he's away on a free transfer. Gundogan goes on a free transfer. Kevin De Bruyne goes on a free transfer. Akanji goes on loan to Inter. Ederson goes to Fenerbahce. Just trying to see if there's anyone else. Victor Rice, the young centre-half that they got in January, is away on loan to Girona, just to give him a bit of experience. So I think a big thing with City for me is just the quality of players that they had when they were peak top. I just feel as if the level is dipping from the recruitment a little bit with who they're getting in there. And I don't think we've seen Pep have to quite rebuild a team like this. So it's the most intriguing for me out of the three, because the guy that has dominated football in the last, 15 years, let's call it, give or take, 15 years, maybe even a little bit longer. And we know how everyone's been playing the game, and there's lots of conversations on that and lots of chat on that. But the man that's dominating the game has to come in and rebuild in what feels like will be his last year or two, as we know, with the contract expiring in 2 years. So it is the most intriguing one for me. I like the signing of Reinders. I think he looks good. Aït-Nouri, yeah. Cherki, young, 21. Let's see. And we know players take time to adapt to Pep too. So it's maybe a view to be in the mix this season, of course, wanting to win. It's Pep Guardiola and Man City. They're not going to look at it and go, we're not looking to win. But it might be a bit more of a view of next season's more of the season where we feel like we're ready. We've had the players in, we've worked with them, we've got the mentality down, we've got the identity down on them, and we really, really are top level for what could be his last season in charge at City and potentially in football. We don't know. So that is very, very, very interesting for me. And again, if we just kind of go and have a look at City, I think defensively is where it just doesn't feel as strong. Like I say, it's Donnarumma and Trafford in goal. You've got Garvadol there, you've got Ruben Diaz, you've got Kushanov, you've got John Stones, you've got Ake, you've got Aït-Nouri, and you've got Rico Lewis. Like Diaz, I love, obviously, solid, 28 years old, been absolutely brilliant, one of the best centre-halves in the world. I do like Garvadol. Stones is great when fit, but he is 31, so a bit more experience there in there. Ake, I think, is good, but has been a weak link. Aït-Nouri's, again, new to it. And Rico Lewis, again, only 20 years old, by the way, don't get me wrong. But if you look at that, does it feel like it's on the par with Arsenal and Liverpool? I just think defence is where it might let them down a little bit this season. It doesn't feel quite as strong in there as it has been in recent seasons. Midfield, we know Rodri will be back. We know they've brought Reinders in. Nico Gonzalez, Mateus Nunes, who kind of plays as the right back anyway. Kovacic is still there, albeit injured, again for a bit of experience. Nico O'Reilly, kind of centre mid, but can play left back. And then you've got Bernardo Silva in the mix as well. So it's a good bit of experience in there, but are those guys maybe just starting to get a little bit over the hill? Has it got enough kind of energy and power and pace in there? Let's see. Doku, in terms of attackers and wingers, they've got Doku, 23, but I still feel like it's all flair and not a lot of end product. Foden went off the boil a little bit, 25 now. Like, what's his best position? Is it coming in off the right? Is it a 8 or a 10? I don't know if he's quite worked that out yet, albeit when he's on, he's hands down one of the best players in the league. I really like Savinho. They didn't want him to go. He's 21. I think he has end product. I think he's good. Cherki, Oscar Bob, Haaland, and Marmoush. So, like, that's... Haaland's going to still get you 20 goals a season. Marmoush does look really, really good. I said I do like Savinho, but he's still 21 and isn't quite, that high level. And that's what I'm saying. I feel like that's the area as well where it is a little bit down, particularly on Liverpool. Have gone and got proven talent. And potentially on Arsenal too. I would maybe take Arsenal's. I mean, you take Haaland in there, obviously. Everybody else, I'm probably taking Eze. I'm taking Saka over Savinho in that right now. So I just think, again, Arsenal pipped them a little bit there. But Pep is the manager, so let's see what happens. But that's kind of why I've gone ahead and I've put them in third place for my new predictions. Moving on from that, just kind of wrap up the top half of the table. I've gone Chelsea in fourth. I still think they'll be fourth. They haven't looked great, but I don't know if I see anyone else getting in there. I think the next closest will be Newcastle and potentially Spurs, who I know got beat by Bournemouth just before the break there, and it was a bit of like a wake-up call there for them. But, I think those three are interesting. That could be a little bit of a battle for 4th, 5th and 6th in there. I've then gone Bournemouth for 7th because I really thought they would struggle with the players they've lost, but they've got the identity with Iraola still in there. And I just get a feeling they're going to be all right, and I think again against Liverpool they were great. Against Spurs they got the win there. I just think they're going to just be a really, really difficult team to play against. They have the Iraola identity, and it's huge. I've then gone Man United in 8th. It's just Amorim looks like he's really, really feeling the pressure, so they're still just on a complete kind of seesaw for me, because it could go one way or the other. If he gets it clicking and they get a bit of continuity and they start getting a bunch of wins in and it's quite consistent and they feel confident in themselves and they don't have European football, it's one game a week, then it could go completely fine, and the signings that they made, it could be sound. But it feels like he's under a lot of pressure, and it feels like we're back to that Ten Hag where it's like, yeah, they beat Burnley and it was a last minute penalty and the fans feel great and they're like, yes, come on, and Bruno's celebrating like he's won the World Cup. I've just seen it so many times, so I don't know if the narrative is going to repeat itself. So I had them fifth, probably just as a Liverpool fan, being worried that they would be back up there. But I don't. They're not better than Chelsea. They're not better than Newcastle. I don't think they're better than Spurs or Bournemouth, to be quite frank with you. I think they're in the mix with who have then got ninth as Brighton and 10th as Palace. And then I think they're in the mix of them. So it will be very interesting to see United. I've actually gone with Villa 11th. They've really struggled with PSR. Let's look at Villa actually before I go into United and Chelsea and stuff like that. Let me look at Villa, because what I found really interesting about Villa was there was a lot of talk about what they've done. You have to remember, Villa came back up from the Championship. So they reached the 2019 Championship playoff final and defeated Derby, if you guys mind that, 2-1. So in 2019, they come back up. So the 1920 season. They've then gone to the Champions League at the end of the 23-24 season. So we've got 5 years from them going from Championship to being in the Champions League. Massive. And I know Villa fans are playing the kind of same narrative that Newcastle are, that PSR is hurting them and that they're being hampered. But look at that leap of jump from the Championship to the Champions League. And I think what's hurt Villa is quite simply been the transfers. If we just take it back to 22-23 is what I looked at, not only who they've brought in, but what they've spent on them. And there's a lot of talk about wages. I don't know what people are on, but there's a lot of talk. There's very high wages there. You've got Diego Carlos comes in for Villa. He's 29 years old. They pay 31 million for him. They buy Duran at 19, 29 million. We know they then sell him, and it probably looks like it's the right thing because he's then gone to Saudi and then been moved on already, I think, to Turkey, right? Coutinho, who everyone thought cool big name at the time, 30, 20 million, never worked out. Then Donker, they bought for 15 million from Wolves. I mean, as he barely played for them. Alex Moreno was a left back and a couple there. So that's 22-23 for Villa, right? If we look at 23-24, if we just go through that, they bring in Diaby as a winger for 55 million euros. They bring in Pau Torres, who, okay, probably has been decent, 33 million. Morgan Rogers, that's a decent buy for 9 million. They get Tielemans in on a free transfer. They get Lenglet from Barca on a loan transfer, probably not great. Just having a little look here, but that's probably about it. So that's not a bad window, 23-24, right? And that's when we know that they reached the Champions League. Last season, they spent close to 60 million euros on Nana, who I think is decent, but is he worth 60 million? They spend just shy of 45 million euros on Maatsen, the left back. They spend 25 million on Malin from Dortmund. Again, they buy Cameron Archer for 16 million from Sheffield United, and he's not even there anymore. He's been sold to Southampton. And that's just not a great bit of business as well either. We know they bring in Asensio on loan. We know they bring in Marcus Rashford on loan. And at the time, they buy Ross Barkley as well, who, again, is okay, but is 30 years old. I just don't think they've bought very well either as well, Villa fans, to be quite honest with you. I get the frustration on the kind of rules and stuff, and that's how it is going forward. And we know they bring in Sancho on loan. Let's see how that one goes. They tried it with Rashford. He was okay there, but let's see. Harvey Elliott, I really like. Best of luck to Harvey Elliott. I don't know how he'll fit in an Emery team, but it might be good for him. Lindelof on a free again, 31. And we know they bring in Gassand, 30 million. We don't know how he's going to be from Nice. But I just think they've had a lot of misses in there, Villa. I just don't think it's been a good bit of business. And maybe not even necessarily misses is the right word, but the amount that they're spending on them is a lot. And apparently they're spending a lot of wages there too. So that's why I've got kind of Villa down there in that kind of 11th spot. Let me just quickly go through Chelsea and United and Newcastle and stuff like that, just as to why I think I've got them there. We know Chelsea just have this mad thing about ins and outs and where they look to go and all those things. They bring in João Pedro, they bring in Jamie Gittins, they bring in Garnacho eventually over the line, they bring in Jaro Hato, Liam Delap, Estavio, and then there's a couple of younger guys there that I'm not going to go into. They bring in Buonanotte from Brighton, which gets loaned. I don't even know how that works. I'm not even going to get into that because Chelsea are just in that weird space. They let go of Madueke and Kunku. João Felix, can't believe he's still there. Dewsbury Hall, obviously. Broja is still there. Nicholas Jackson has that mental kind of Bayern Munich disaster there. And they let Kepa go. So, like, it's just a lot of kind of like for like guys from Chelsea. Like, I don't see a huge improvement in quality straight off the bat from who they're letting in and bringing out. And I mean, they brought in 332 million and then they spent 328 million. So, like, they know how to stay within the PSR rules. It's a bit mad, and I don't think we're going to know if the whole Chelsea thing's going to work. But if you're looking at the league at the moment, I get the feeling they'll probably still have enough to come forth. If we go to United summer, we know that they spent a lot of money. It's a 250 million euros. They buy Sesko for 76 million. They buy Mbeumo for 75. They buy Cunha for 74. They eventually bring in the keeper Lamens for 21 million. We know that they've just had a Nana go out on loan. So, you know, they do well to get rid of Garnacho. They do well to get rid of Antony. They get rid of Sancho, though, only on loan, and Rashford on loan, so they're both still going to be around next summer. So that problem's not dealt with. And he obviously just didn't quite fancy Højlund. They sent him on loan, I think, with a view to buy as well at the end of the season. Højlund, the big, strong striker, bet he suits Antonio Conte. That's the way it goes, but let's see. So they've done well to get rid of Garnacho and Antony and get money in for them. I think Garnacho, 46 million euros, you take it. Antony, 22 million, you take it. Lindelof, cool loan with a view to buy. But Rashford and Sancho are the ones there. So it's still a bit like they haven't quite got through the churn, and it will take a bit of time. But I like Mbeumo, I like Cunha. I think they've overspent on both of them. I get why like Brentford would want that money for Mbeumo. I get why Wolves would want that money for Cunha. They're their star man. Sesko, we don't know yet. I'm not gonna say anything about him because he's barely played for them, and he's only 22. So give the lad time, whether he plays for Man United or not. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's kind of sitting on a seesaw balance with Amorim. I don't know. I was a bit worried about them. We're only 3 games in. I'm starting to swing the other way, but as we know, that's football for you. You know, they play City when they come back. If they can get a victory in that game, huge for them. It could be a bit of a catalyst. But there's United's transfers. Newcastle, we know they eventually do sell Isak. I know Newcastle fans very, kind of pissed off about it. It's been funny. Newcastle fans have been saying to me, better watch Isak's growing. It's not worth 135 million or whatever. They weren't saying that when he was still there and you guys were on about keeping him and trying to reintegrate him and stuff, so that stuff I do find funny. But what they buy the boy from Stuttgart, was it Voltemud, if I say that correctly again, 85 million euros. Let's see how he does. He's 23. I have zero idea. So that's obviously the man that they're trying to bring in. Alanga off the right wing, who I like. 61 million euros though. It's quite a lot. They bring in Vissa, who kind of did the same thing as Isak, just maybe not quite as big. He's 28 for about 57 million euros. I like Vissa, Premier League proven, I guess, but it's a lot of money on a 28-year-old. I think the signing of Jacob Ramsey is really good. They bring in Malik Thaw from AC Milan, who's by all accounts a decent centre half, and they bring in Ramsdale as kind of a backup keeper, which is not bad as a loan fee. And like I say, we do know they sell Isak there. So It'll just depend on where the goals are for Newcastle, but I liked what I've seen from them so far. They showed a great bit of spirit, obviously, in the Liverpool game at St James's Park. We knew that one was going to be a cauldron. We knew it was going to be a tough one. So I like that from them, and I think they'll continue to have that, the balance of the Champions League this season and everything. But again, I just think they're better than the other teams there, and if Eddie Howe can get that balance, I think they'll be in the mix for 4th and 5th. Spurs, who have said they'd really like to get Xavi Simons over the line. They've been obviously wanting an attacking midfielder, and they missed out on a couple. A little bit embarrassing stuff for the Eze stuff, but they get Simons in. Let's see, he's bounced around a lot of the top clubs. Let's see if he's got what it takes. Kudus, who I love, I think it's going to be a great sign-in. They get Tell for a free. They bring in Kevin Danzo. Obviously, they get that over the line. Paulinho over the line. They brought in that Kolo Muani on loan from PSG, just a bit more oomph up there in the attack. So I like the business that Spurs have done. Son was kind of on his way out. We know that's kind of the big out there. And yeah, so I like what Spurs are doing. I think they're tactically already a lot better set up. And I've kind of gone through Aston Villa. We know I've gone with Forest in 12th just because they've got Europe too. Nuno was always going to go with saying what he was saying. There's talks of the reason that he's gone is that, they didn't like the style of football and they wanted him to be a bit more expansive and attacking, and that kind of conversation again of, what do you want? I don't think a manager should be told that he needs to play a certain style, and with Nuno, you know exactly what you're going to get with him. So it's not fully confirmed, but it does look like it's going to be Ange coming in. So he's back, and we know he's going to go for it. Forest got players for that, though. Forest have got players to go forwards. But let's see. Well, Ange might have learnt a little bit from the Spurs thing. He might come back and he might change a couple of things. So I'm intrigued to see how it goes. But a little up in there, just won't have as good a season, especially with Europe. I think they'll come 12th. I've gone Everton 13th, kept that. Fulham 14th. I've actually then, as we get to the bottom, I think Brentford might stay. I'm worried for them. I think they'll be in the mix and I think they'll be in the battle, but I have put them 15th. But I don't know. I just have a feeling that they might stay. Is it? Did they get Ouattara from Bournemouth? Yeah, they did. He looks like he's a decent signing. They've replaced that well. I said that they have the money ball. I don't know. I have a feeling that the signings they've made are going to be all right. I don't know if Keith Andrews will last this season, but I don't know if they'll be down in proper trouble when they sack him. But let's see. I've gone them 15th. I've changed that up. I've gone West Ham 16th. Kept them there. I actually think Sunderland are going to stay up. I like what I've seen from them a little bit. I like the mix of style. I like how physical they are. I think they could be okay based off of the 3 games, and it's the stadium I like. Can they do it? They've traded out Wolves for me. I just think Wolves are going to be down. They did well to keep Strand Larson in at the end of the window and not let him go to Newcastle, but maybe he's got enough goals to save them, and Sunderland don't. But Sunderland went a little bit mad on at the end of the transfer window too, and brought a couple more guys in and tried to strengthen there. But I think we might see Wolves go down. I just think Daniel Farke will get sacked at Leeds, and it depends on who they bring in to replace him. So I now do have Leeds going down, and I still do think Burnley will go down. I think Scott Parker talks well, he dresses well, he's suave, but I just don't know if he's quite ready for the Premier, or if he's that level of manager. I just think Burnley are going to go back down. And I don't know, I just get the feeling Burnley kind of know that as well. I don't know. Burnley fans, correct me if I'm wrong if you see it. So I'll have the full predictions up on the screen if you're watching it. That's kind of my revised predictions. I'm conscious we've been going for about 32 minutes here, so I'm conscious not to make this massively long, but that's it. I'm excited it's all back. I'll get a preview video out for the weekend games and stuff like that. It'll be out on Thursday or Friday morning. And yeah, just excited to get back into it. There's been a lot. Daniel Levy's obviously left Spurs. In the transfer window, there's been a little bit of stuff about City and the court case and everything like that. I don't really understand it, but one thing I did write down that I didn't want to mention is that football, for me, growing up, and you look at it in the past, kind of 70s and 80s and kind of in that Thatcher era, football for me was like a bit of a stick it to the man against politics and against that, and making sure that culture stays there for working class people. And I know life changes and the game has changed, and it's well away from working class people, or at least almost is. But football used to be against politics, and now I feel like football is politics. You literally need a degree in finance and politicians and the way that these people move and the way that they talk and the deals that are getting done. It's become politics, unfortunately. So I think I'll end it on that. As always, subscription service for the weekend breakdowns, they'll go up in there. I've been putting other content up on there. People getting that stuff early before it goes live on YouTube and all those things. And as the season kind of gets rolling and gets growing, there'll be a few competitions coming up. There'll be things like merch and that as we grow. Just be a lot of fun things once we kind of get that other side of that next international break and we get into the flow of things. So if you like that, link will be in the description. Links on the YouTube. Check out all the socials and stuff. Like and subscribe if you get this far. I do appreciate that if you enjoy it. And it's still sunny. We're in September. We still got a bit of sun. We still got a bit of heat. I'm actually roasting with this kind of fleece thing on, so I'm going to get it off and go for a little walk, get some yoga, and enjoy the day. So as always, have a good week. Be positive. Get yourself mentally ready. And until the next one, peace.